Hello and welcome. This is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. So today we're going to talk about how to use your Sublimation printer. So several months ago, I converted an Epson EcoTank 4700 into a Sublimation printer and I've been using it for various projects. I did want to drop back, however, and do like a basics video on how to use a Sublimation printer for maybe those of you that are diving in for the first time. So basic supplies you're going to need. You're going to need a Sublimation printer. So that is a printer that has Sublimation ink installed. What type of printer doesn't necessarily matter for the sake of this tutorial, because it's just going to be the basic overview of using a Sublimation printer and the things you're going to need to use that. But you will need some sort of Sublimation printer with Sublimation ink. So I'm using my Epson ET 4700 with Hippo Sublimation ink installed. And then I also use Sublimation paper. I know that some people use regular copy paper or laser copy paper with their Sublimation printer, but I am a fan of Sublimation paper, at least for now. May change my mind later as I get into it, but for now I'm using Sublimation paper. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to use Sublimation paper. And what we're going to do is we're going to head to the computer and take a look at some programs, because when you're using a Sublimation printer, you want to be sure to print the right size for whatever you're making. So if I'm making a shirt, I want to be able to print the right size, versus if I'm making a can koozie, I would print something way smaller to fit on the can koozie. So we're going to take a look at different options for sizing your designs and printing them to your Sublimation printer. So I'm going to have a few different options for you. I'm going to have some free options as well as some options that are not free and will be paid. These are all options on your computer. I don't know of a great app on your phone to print to a Sublimation printer. If someone knows of one, feel free to comment below. I'll make a future video. I just haven't found a great app for resizing designs and sending to your Sublimation printer consistently, I guess. So if you have one, you found one, by all means, leave something below. And at the end, we will make a small project. I thought we would just sublimate on a couple of can koozies just to complete the whole sublimation process, so you can see it kind of from start to finish. Now, I did want to note that the free options we're using do not use color profiles. So I did a video last week on color profiles. So below in the description below this video, if you are on computer, hit show more. If you're on mobile, you can try swiping up on the video. It usually appears. Big description, tons of links. I'll have a link to where I converted my Epson EcoTank to a Sublimation printer. I will also have a link to a video I did on ICC profiles, and that's where you can correct the color coming out of your Sublimation printer. So what I want to note is the free options that we're going to talk about, where you can resize your design and send them to your Sublimation printer, those will not be color corrected. So whatever colors are with your printer driver, those are the colors that those are going to use. Now, I'll have a paid option that I'm going to show you how to use, show you how to resize your designs. And for that one, you can use an ICC profile if you would like. Now, I would encourage you to watch my video on ICC profiles, because there's not a huge difference. It's just going to be what type of crafter you are. If you're happy with the way your Sublimation printer prints, ignore all that. Just print and have fun and craft away. So when we make our actual project, I'm going to make some can koozies, and I'll link to all the supplies below. And I'm going to use some heat tape. I am going to use some protective paper as well as a protective project mat. And I'll probably use my Easy Press to press it. You could use an Easy Press or a heat press. Either one does not matter. So what we're going to do is head to the computer now and take a look at the three options. I'll probably only use one of those options to print so I don't waste a ton of ink, but we're going to look at sizing the same design. We'll look at sizing the same design for this can koozie on all three, and how you would size a design for something like a shirt on all three. Now, if you are doing something like a tumbler with a template, that is a little bit different. So in each of those programs, I'll talk a little bit about using templates and how those would relate to each program. Sometimes it's easy, other times it's not. So let's take a look at inside of each of the programs and how to use them to print to your Sublimation printer. All right, so the first program we're going to look at is Cricut Design Space. Cricut Design Space is a free program. I'll link to it below. If you're a Cricut user, you probably already have it. And since I have a lot of Cricut followers, this is one that's easy to use. So the first thing you're going to do is upload the images that you want to print for sublimation. Once you open that up, you have a few different options. I usually pick complex. You can always go back and pick a different one. And here you can just zoom out and you can see what's happening with this. So you want the background to be checked always. If you upload a PNG file, a PNG file, this usually does this automatically, just like it has here. And we'll click continue. Then on this next screen, you want to be sure to click the print then cut image, not just the cut image, and then click upload. Then you just pick the image you upload and click Insert Images. Then within Cricut Design Space, you can resize your image. So I would zoom out first of all, and then you can resize your image using either this arrow, which you just pull to resize, or you can type in how large you want your image. So let's say we wanted it 11 inches for a shirt. And now we can zoom back in, and we have a print then cut image. Now, I do want to note a couple things about Cricut Design Space. The first is that in this machine section in the upper right hand corner, you'll want to make sure that Explorer or Maker is chosen in order to have the print and cut function. The other thing, and what this little triangle with the exclamation point is telling us, is this is actually too large for print and cut. So print and cut, the maximum is 9.25 by 6.75. So it's actually too large still at 9.25. So we would have to go 6.75 in height. So this is the largest image we could print out of Cricut Design Space. But you also want to take into account the size of your printer. So my ET4700, the maximum I can print is 8.5 by 14 anyway. So I could only go probably a little bit larger than this and still print it anyway. So it may be worth it just depending on what your project is. But if this size is okay with you and it will work for your project, you would then click Make It. You would click Continue at this point. And you do not have to have a Cricut machine to use this at all. So it says no device found. Let's say I did not have a Cricut. It does not matter because here is the Send to Printer button. You would just click Send to Printer. The first thing you want to do is find your printer that is for sublimation. The next thing is to always uncheck Add Bleed and check Use System Dialog. Then click Print. On this next screen, you're going to want to make sure the sublimation printer is picked. And then if you need to change any of your print settings, you can go to Preferences from this window. You can make sure that you're set for matte paper, that your quality is set to high. You can even make sure that your image is going to be mirrored and that high speed is off. So you can double check all those settings. I do recommend setting those settings within the printer dialog box so they're set every time so you don't forget. But you can check those here. Click OK, and then click Print, and it will go directly to your sublimation printer. So now let's take a look at a few other things in Cricut Design Space and how they would work with printing. But before we leave this one really quick, I did not talk about this black box. The black box around the outer edge is for the Cricut machine to locate its cuts. In this case, of course, it's not going to cut. We are just going to put it on our sublimation blank and we are going to press it. But it will go ahead and print this black box. What I do is just cut it away with scissors and cut around inside that box, but it will waste some black ink. So those are kind of like the drawbacks of using Cricut Design Space, but there are some benefits as well. So let's take a look at those. So I bought this image on Etsy and I uploaded it as an SVG file, which you can do in Design Space. As it stands, this is all black, and I want to make it like, say, my school colors. I can pick each of these individual pieces and make them literally any color of the rainbow if I pull this down that I would like. That means that I can change the color of what I import in Cricut Design Space easily. So this is one of the benefits. It's a free program and you can alter images like this super easily with just a little bit of knowledge. So now that I have my colors picked, and I might want a little bit of a brighter red. If I click everything, so I pick everything, and click this flatten button in the lower right hand corner. Now, this is a print then cut image, and it will print then cut. And so I would resize it to the size I want. And I did want to show you one more thing. So I can duplicate that, and so I want 2 of them, let's say. And I'm going to click Make It. What I want on this one, I don't want these to be so close together because of like the pressing lines. When I press my design, I want to leave a little bit more room around my prints. So I can just pick these up and I can move it on this canvas and I can put them far apart. And now they'll be further apart and I can leave more room around my design. Of course, we still have this black box. We'll still have to cut it away, so we'll have to cut pretty close on 2 sides, but that is another benefit of Cricut Design Space. All right, so let's talk about using templates in Cricut Design Space. So I have this digital paper that I uploaded, and then I have this template. So generally, if you buy a Sublimation blank from a reputable dealer, a full wrap template is available for that blank. So this is for a shot glass. There's ones for tumblers, mugs, that type of thing. So the only thing I need you to be careful of when uploading to Cricut Design Space is figuring out if this is still the right size. So first of all, never unlock your template. Always keep it locked. And then I am going to put it at a width of 8.5. And you can see that it's 13 long. So this is not fitting on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I would expect it to. So it may or may not be right. It may be a little large. I'm gonna go ahead and do a slice on this and probably print it out. And then I would probably check it against my shot glass and maybe do some tweaking on it. So although you can use Cricut Design Space for the templates, the sizing might be off. I'll just say that. So what I would do is get this just how you want it. So get it right in place so that looks good. And then you'll pick both objects and click Slice. If the Slice button is not highlighted, that means you have more than 2 pieces. So you would need to combine some pieces with like the weld function or something like that. You want just 2 pieces, so just your template and just your digital paper. So you could make your own digital paper, click flatten, and then probably the slice would show up. But if your slice is not showing up, that's why. If we click slice, then you'll see I'll get all kinds of other layers. And what I'm going to do is delete a bunch of those off. And I'm left with a wrap that should work for my shot glass. Again, the sizing of these in Cricut Design Space could be off, but this is a way to use those templates successfully with a free program. So now let's look at our second free program and how it works. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is called Canva, and the website is canva.com. I do want to note that I am logged in to my account and I do have a subscription to this website. However, what I'm going to show you can be done on the free version. So what we're going to do is click Create a Design. We're going to click Custom Size, change this to inches, and put 8.5 by 11 or whatever size paper you are going to print on with your Sublimation printer, and click Create New Design. And that brings us to a page that looks something like this, where there's a new design created. And what I did was click Uploads, Upload Media, and I uploaded the same things we used in Cricut Design Space over here so we could look at the same things. So what you would do is insert just by clicking any image. So this is our sunflower image again. And now we can resize however large or small we want it to be. Now the benefit of Canva is you're not restricted by that size that you are in Cricut Design Space, and it also won't print that black box around the outside. So I can literally make this any size I would like. I could even make it where it went off the page if I only wanted a partial of an image. So let's make it as large as we can. And then the lines indicate that it's centered. So if you want it to be centered, you would put it there. And then you can call it whatever you would like. Click and download it here. And I recommend that you download a PDF that's print quality, but you could also download a PNG file, but the PDF print quality will ensure that it keeps it the size that you just made it. So I would pick PDF print and then click download. Then you'll pull it out of your downloads folder and print it from there, and it should be the exact same size. So let's go ahead and download this one. And let me show you the print for this one. So once it's downloaded, I opened it up and you can see it's the exact same size. And then we'll just click print. We will pull down and pick our Sublimation printer. And you can pick more settings here if you would like. And you can also, again, use the print using system dialog box. So you can check all your settings here, making sure that your Sublimation printer is chosen, clicking preferences, and you can make sure that all of these are correct, including your mirror, and then click print here to send it to your Sublimation printer. So that's how you would print using Canva. So let's take a look at those other projects we did in Design Space and how you would do something similar in Canva. So next up was this tiger's image. So I've uploaded it to Canva, but if you can see, there's no way to change the colors. So whatever the colors were when I downloaded it, that's what Canva is going to print. So it's not very useful for altering photographs. You only have a few options to adjust or filter those, and it would just increase or decrease the brightness or tint it, and it would do the entire image. So there wouldn't be an option for changing the color of just a portion of the image. So let's go back to our uploads and we'll look at this digital paper. So this is the digital paper sheet. And then you could just size this digital paper sheet. So once you make it as big as the paper itself, you may notice that you can't move it. If you double click it, those boxes will come back, but now it won't let you get any smaller than the paper itself. So what we can do is cancel this, delete this back off. However, if we keep it smaller than the paper, then those buttons are always there. So once you make it larger than the paper, it becomes part of the paper. So that's only the kind of thing weird about Canva. And then we will put the template over the top, and we're going to make this larger than. And then if we click over here, you may notice that it went away. So again, that white piece is now part of our background, but we can't see it any longer. So there isn't an option to see it. So what you can do, so there's not just a ton of options with Canva like there was with Design Space. So here I've made my paper my background. So I made it as large as my paper. Then I'm going to put my template over it, and I'm going to make it almost as large as my paper. I'm going to leave a little bit of space, and then I'm going to click over here. Now it will print it, and I will have my template. The only problem is I don't have a ton of options of resizing that background paper in Canva. So there are a little bit of restrictions, but we can still make it work for our template. And if we made this border small enough, it should be pretty close to size, hopefully. So hopefully it's came in at the right size. So that's the other thing. So the only time I can guarantee that the template is the right size is with Photoshop. With Canva or Cricut Design Space, I can't guarantee that these templates are going to be the right size. However, if they're oversized, at least that will just hang off the edge of your shot glass in this case, and it would not affect your sublimation. If they're undersized, however, then that would affect your sublimation. So you just have to print it and play with it. And you might have to make this larger. If If you did have to make it larger, let me show you what's going to happen in Canva. So if we pull this larger, if you had to do that for your template, we let it go, we click over here, it's going to look something like that. So what you need to do is click undo on your computer keyboard. And I'm on a Windows computer and I hold down the control button and I click Z, and then it appears back again. And now I can download it and print it just like this. So if you do need to make that template larger than the paper size, that's the way you would do it. You could also make your paper size bigger, like there's ways you could trick Canva, I think, but that's the way I would do it. And then I would download it again as that PDF print and print it out like that. But I do think for templates, you're gonna have to play with the size once again. The only other option for templates, what you can do, is you can print one page. Let me get rid of this. We're going to print one page. That is our digital paper, whatever size we want it to be. And then we put the template over on this page, size it to what we want it to be, download both of these sheets as a printable PDF, print them both, and use this and a pencil to trace out on the digital paper and cut it with scissors. So that's another option if you would like not to have to go through all that crazy computer stuff. So let's take a look at how easy each of these functions are in Photoshop, which is a paid program. Okay, this is Adobe Photoshop. So this also works in Corel, the Corel programs. I do not have those. I have the Adobe suite. So that's what I'm going to show you on. There are other paid programs that this will work in. So what I'm going to do for Photoshop is click Create New. And again, you want to set this to where it's the size of your page that you're printing. And within Photoshop, you can also set your resolution. 300 pixels per inch is recommended. You could also set your color mode, which can affect some prints. And you can dive more into color correction if you would like, but that can affect your coloring. But since we're importing images and not making images, I'm just going to leave it as it is. And I'm going to click Create. So now we're going to go up here, we're going to click File, we're going to click Open, and we're going to find the file on our computer that we want to open. So now that I've opened that, you can see I have over here my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and over here I have my sunflower watercolor. I right click the layer and click Duplicate Layer, and then I pick my Untitled one, which is my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I click OK. And now if we go back to our 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, we'll see the sunflower is on there. Now it's important not to distort your design. So if you'll click on this square, a dialog box pops up here, and I like to just resize it the same amount. So 50 and 50, and you can also lock those proportions by clicking that lock button. And so we will do 40. You can also view and zoom out, and I made this landscape, so just keep resizing until we like the way this looks. All right, so now that everything fits on there, and then our proportions are locked, so we could also grab these corner boxes and drag them. So either way you want to resize, completely up to you. So now we could print right out of Photoshop to our Sublimation printer. So the huge benefit of printing out of Photoshop is that I could use those ICC profiles. I did a whole other video on how to get those and how to use them to print. So I will link to that below. You can head there, but you just do File and Print, and then print from here, of course, on your Sublimation printer. And for me, I already have my printer profiles picked. Again, you can watch the other video on how to set those. And then when I was printing before, you'll see these lines here. I actually was printing on 8.5 by 14, so I would need to go in and change that. So Photoshop basically remembers your settings from the last time you printed and will remember those and keep those stored. So just note that anytime you see anything like that. All right, so there's how we do the sunflower. And now I already have this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I'm done with the sunflower. I don't really need to save it. I'm just going to delete this off. You can hit the backspace button, you can hit the delete button, whichever you would like, and then I'm going to close this window. Now I'm going to open my second design. So there's that tiger's football. Once again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to duplicate that layer and I'm going to move it over to Untitled. Then I'm going to click the square to get this dialog box. It's already locked for me, so I'm just going to move this time. Make it pretty small. And now you can change the colors in Photoshop. So what we are going to do is pick this paint bucket, and I am going to pick the blue I would like first of all, and I'm going to use my paint bucket to color anything I want blue. And we can zoom in on this so we can be sure to get all those little bits and pieces. And color all of those blue. And then we would do the same thing with the red. So we have the paint bucket chosen. We are going to go, let's go to a really deeper red. And then we will pick all of the black portions. And on this font, I will have to pick those outside pieces. And then once all of that's picked, let's zoom back out. And this one's ready to print. So I can, again, size it to however large I need it. And this time I'm actually going to size it and print it for the can koozies we're gonna make. Okay, so what I like also about both Photoshop as well as Canva is that when I have these, I can make them pretty far apart, and where they're not close to the edges, I don't have that black box around it at all. And then I can minimize my lines by cutting my paper pretty large to fit on something like this can koozie, and I can minimize those press lines. So I'm gonna go with this, and I'm gonna go ahead and print that to my Sublimation printer. So now that I've printed both of those, let's just, again, delete those off and open our third and final project. All right, so here I have my watermelon digital paper and my template. So with Photoshop, I'm fairly confident that the template opened at the right size. So I'm gonna cross my fingers on that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing I've done and bring this over to my paper over here, and we'll click the corner. It's locked. We'll go ahead and size that down. And so within Photoshop, I can make this a super small print, and then we can bring our template over. So I am fairly confident that this template came in at the right size. However, I have turned my paper the wrong size. So I could either turn my paper the right size, or I can click on this again and I can turn this 90 degrees. And now everything should be the correct size and the correct orientation. And then I would also just follow any guidelines that are on the template itself. So when you download the template, a lot of times you get instructions on how to use it. You can also follow those guidelines, and you can always print a test. So what I would do to print a test, whether you're using Photoshop or not, is to print this page. So we could print that page by itself by just deleting that background. And so I could print this, wouldn't use a whole lot of ink. I could print it on a regular printer if I didn't even want to use my Sublimation printer, test it around my blank and make sure it did come in at the correct size before I printed it. So any of these programs, you could do that with the templates. The templates always make me a little bit nervous, whether they're the right size or not. So I do like to run a test. So hopefully that helps, and you learned how to use the 3 different programs with your Sublimation printer. Now let's actually make a project. All right, so my Easy Press is heating up and I'm prepping my can koozie. So what I've done, so we're gonna talk a lot about minimizing press lines in a future video, but I'm using this foam, and I'm gonna link to all this below, and I cut a small piece to fit inside the koozie, put a protected piece of paper on top of that, and then I have the koozie itself. And then, like I said, leaving room around the edge will help with press lines. So I've made this sheet larger than the koozie itself. So before you pre-press, you'll just want to clean this with the lint roller, cover with protective paper, and then we'll press over the top for a few seconds. And I'm going to press the koozie for just a few seconds to get rid of any moisture. And then we want to add our sublimation print to the koozie itself. What I want to do is get this on location, hopefully. I just want to make sure it's not too hot. And what we're going to do is tape sort of to the back. So I'm going to get it centered up, move it over, make sure it's somewhat centered left to right. And then what we'll do is take a couple pieces of tape and we'll go from the back. So we'll just put the tape from the back, securing it to the sublimation print. And we'll just do that in 2 different places is fine. We just want it so when we flip everything, our sublimation print doesn't move. And then we're going to put another piece of protective paper on the top. And now we are ready to press. So this is 400 degrees for 60 seconds. And we want to hold it as still as possible. And it's like medium to high pressure. All right, when it's done, we're going to lift straight up. And this is a peel hot. So I'm going to put my heat resistant gloves on. And we're just going to remove that sublimation print, and you can see it perfectly transferred. So that is how you use a sublimation printer. So I hope that helps answer some of your questions about how to use a sublimation printer to make just about anything. So I use this tutorial to make a couple can koozies. You could use the same thing to make a shirt or just about anything, as long as it's the size of the paper that comes out of your sublimation printer. So that is something that is completely up to you. So I'm opting for a smaller printer to at least to get started. I may upgrade later. So the maximum my ET 4700 can print is legal size, which is 8.5 by 14 inches. You can get sublimation printers that print huge, but you also have to pay that price for them. So it's all going to depend on your budget and where you're getting started. But a regular printer that prints that 8.5 by 11 or 8.5 by 14 size is fine for getting started, in my opinion. So I hope this helps you get started with sublimation printing, whether you are making some can koozies or any other project. Grab your sublimation printer, your Hippo sublimation ink, and get started with that printing with the programs that I showed you. If you have any questions about anything we've covered, please feel free to drop down in the comments section and ask away. If you like this video, if it helped, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos every week and you don't want to miss any of those. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.